All right. How are we doing? Everybody good? Pretty early, right? Yeah, pretty early. Hybrid says, hello, Morj, I'm watching you in my class. College classes were great because you could kind of just, especially if you were humanities, if you're in a humanities course with a big lecture hall, you can just sit all the way in the back, pull out your laptop, and then do whatever. You know what I did? At least for 2 years. So, well, I wasn't as bad as some. Okay. My friends were hooked on Yu-Gi-Oh for a little bit. When I say my friends, I'm also including myself. And there's a couple different websites you can use. You can use the Dueling Network, or you can use DevPro, which isn't really a website; it's more a program. So at the time, the pro move was to go all the way to the back of the class, the lecture hall, and then go sit all the way in the back corner so no one can see what you're doing. And then you kind of just pull up Yu-Gi-Oh and then you play that. And that was how I got through, I think, a lot of my college classes freshman year and then part of sophomore year. So probably don't do that if you're trying to pass or anything like that. But if you want to become a pro duelist, then that's kind of what you got to do. You got to train even in your off hours or whatever. I had one friend who basically he would keep in mind it's also not cool to play Yu-Gi-Oh in front of other people, so that's why you want to sit in the back of the classroom, right? But I had one friend who would straight up go to like dining halls and stuff like that, and then just like pull it out in a not so secret spot, basically. And we're like, dude, what do you do? Like, you're just playing Yu-Gi-Oh out here in the middle of whatever. And he's just like, yeah, I like the thrill of getting caught. We're like, oh shit, okay, all right, that's something. Anyway. Synesthesia says, what do you shave with Morj? Should I be getting shaving sponsors? Should I be getting like Gillette sponsors and stuff like that? Or who are the other brands? I shouldn't even say any brands. I should be paid to say brands. If I say a brand, I should be paid to say it. Everybody like the stream. Let's get the stream likes up. Sean Emmanuel says, Morj, what deck do you run? Back in the day, I played Spellbooks. And then before that, well, Spellbooks, I quit once I started playing Satellar Knights because they were really lame and I was playing them just to kind of compete with the meta. Dollar Shave. Manscaped. Oh, I did get a Manscaped offer way back when. But then it didn't fit with that month. And then ever since then, we switched to a different management thing, basically. Manscaped sponsor. No, now it's pretty much it's a good problem to have, but now there's more sponsors than videos to go up in a month at this point. Morj, I want to see the new background, says Mr. Blaze. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I like the new background a lot. In fact, I have half a mind to not set anything else up and just roll with this background. I love it. I love the color I picked. It turned out much darker than I initially expected because I went to Home Depot and I was looking at it and I was like, just looks way brighter in Home Depot for some reason. Okay, but when you bring it back here and then you do this stuff, it's just a whole different, it's way darker. So at first I was like, oh fuck. You guys know in The Office when like Dwight became manager for like a day and then he painted the whole office black and everyone was like, what the fuck, this is weird, why'd you do that? That's how I felt once I saw this done. And it dried. Once it dried, it was a lot darker than it initially seemed when it was being painted, okay? So once I saw this, I was like, oh my god, this looks terrible. And then I recorded the first stream on it, and I was looking at it, I was like, this looks really fucking good. I don't want to change it. I don't want to add any shelves or anything. Ivan back from the card shop. What's up? Oh, you think Lunarians are the mink? Sorry, I got confused for a second, because you've got a logo. Okay, this sounds like I'm just shilling myself, I guess, but like I forgot that you get like a different badge once you get a number of months, so your logo is a little different. So member for 2 months, you get a better badge. You think Lunarians are the mink/fishman equivalent for dragons? Not only the surface level connections, but also the only race with elemental abilities. You think that they're essentially dragons? Or the dragon version of the one, like, what we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get actual dragons in the One Piece world. I think that anything that's a mythical zone, we literally won't get that in the actual real world. So Lunarians are, I guess, the closest to Oda's version of dragons. What are those things called? There's like a word for like dragons that are half dragon or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Let's see if some of you fantasy people can come up with what that is. There's a word for it. It's not wyverns, it's something else. LD Sparrow 10 says, Morj, do you think it'd make more sense and be more satisfying if Nika got introduced in Impel Down instead of Wano? That's going way far back. So this comment is basically saying, like, wouldn't it be more satisfying if Nika got introduced, like, you know, earliest shit in the story instead of all of a sudden. It was a very fast turnaround. I'll just say that. It's like, this chapter we learn about Nika, I think like 1000, I want to say like 1016, 15, something like that. And then like literally 30 chapters later, 30 chapters is a very, very, very short amount of time. It's a very short amount of time. Like 30 chapters is crazy short amount of time. So it is quite a bit. Like I would like to say that the span of the process of Luffy learning advance. So as a comparison metric, right? When us finding out that Future Sight was a thing to Luffy mastering Future Sight, so that process between learning that Future Sight's a thing to Luffy, you know, mastering it, that was about 30 chapters. About the same as the Nika thing. The difference, of course, being that, you know, the Nika thing is kind of like, that's redefining how we understand who Luffy is and what his actual Devil Fruit power has been from the start of the, like, it basically turns the entire story and how the lens through which you view the Gum Fruit through on its head, basically for the entire story. So, do I think it'd be more satisfying? Look, I'll say this. I think that I get it. Like, it would be cool if, you know, if we found out that like Who's Who found out about it in prison. It would be nice if we had heard about it in that same prison while we were there. At the same time, I think that it doesn't have to be Impel Down. I would say anywhere in the New World, it would have been nice. I don't think it needs to be that crazy recent, but the 30 chapter turnaround is pretty insane. We've had plenty of mentions of races worshiping the sun god for a long time throughout the story, so take that as you will. But that's a far cry. I won't even say plenty of instances. There's been recorded instances of the sun god being mentioned, but that is a very, very far cry from like actually introducing this concept that like you're learning that, okay, there's a name for the sun god. It's universal. It's Nika. Its powers are tied to, well, how many things are there to track here, right? So it's a mythical creature that's specific to the One Piece world, right? So it's a god, but it's also a mythical creature. It can be considered that. Also, Luffy's fruit is not actually the Gum fruit. Also, it's a zone. Also, it's this mythical zone. Also, it's a lot that we learn right in one fell swoop, which I guess is more dramatic in a sense, but at the same time, I think just hearing about Nika a little bit earlier, maybe before the Wano arc, or even the beginning of the Wano arc, I think I would have liked it if it was closer. I still like Gear 5 for a lot, by the way, for the record. I like Gear 5. Discussing the introduction of Gear 5 is its own discussion, right? I would say I would have really, really liked if Nika was name dropped, not during the actual final battle, basically. That would be really, really, really nice. Like, not in the, like, keep in mind, Luffy's literally fighting Kaido in the final battle as we're learning about the god that his fruit is actually going to secretly turn out to be for him to get the power up to turn into that god, which is, you know, that's I don't think that that's the best way that Oda could have done it up to his usual standards of doing things. But still, Gear 5th was dope on its own. Leo Rector says, hey, Morj-chan, have you read/heard about Blue Lock? Here's my knowledge about Blue Lock. 1, it's about soccer, which is a terrible premise for a manga. 2, other countries call it football, which is stupid. 3, there's only one thing I've seen of Blue Lock in general, okay? And I know that some people think Blue Lock's a very good series. I can't speak on Blue Lock because I've not tried it. But there's this page that gets spread a lot. I hope my editors can find this, okay? It's this page that gets spread that always is used to roast Blue Lock, where it's a character talking about how scoring a goal in soccer is the equivalent of, like, impregnating the goal. I was about to say impregnating the goalie, but I don't think that's what it was. I think it's like planting a seed, fertilizing. There's some weird language that's used there. I swear to God. Tell me I'm wrong. That happens in Blue Lock, right? Sheriff Laffy says, do you think since Law encountered Blackbeard, Kid might encounter Shanks in the upcoming chapters? I mean, kids should find that dude marked by flames first. I like to think it's Wang Ji because then a lot of stuff clicks or connects, but I don't know if it's going to be Wang Ji. I do want to see the reactions to the soccer take. Hold on. Hold on. It's fine. We can call it football. We can call it football. How's the switch to Morj OnlyFans? What's going on in chat here? Hold on. James Sylvester, member for 2 months. Yonko tier for 2 months. Ironic to get the Hearts logo after last chapter. I don't know what's going to happen to Law. I am very interested in what might happen to Law, obviously. An average Grumber, member for 2 months. Blue Lock is the Kuroko no Basket of soccer. Isn't Kuroko no Basket, like, really acclaimed, though? I might be wrong. Oscar Cruz, member for 2 months. Yonko for 2 months. Being hooked on Fujimoto's work, finished Chainsaw Man last year, and just finished Goodbye Eri. Should I pick up Fire Punch? I have not tried Fire Punch, but I've heard that it's crazier than Chainsaw Man. Not necessarily better, but it's more whack. It is football. It is football. Sometimes I just say certain things because I know it'll make my non-American fans say something. Like my take on the metric system. I clarify. It's funny. I clarified at the end. I know the metric system is better. I know it. But people get really upset. People get really upset when you talk shit about their football or their metric system. Cheryl Flaffy says, do you think Fujitora or Aokiji will be Fleet Admiral? End of story. I would love... There's so many good... It's okay, so there's a few things here, right? There's who I think will be Fleet Admiral in the epilogue of the story, so I assume we'll get some sort of a time skip or maybe get to take a look at the One Piece world 5 years, 10 years down the line. I like to think that that'll happen. When that's the case, then I think that we could get something like Smoker as Fleet Admiral down the line there, okay? In the context of the current story, I think the new Fleet Admiral being Fujitora would be ideal. Aokiji, I think, will not be... Aokiji's in a tricky spot because I just wonder if he survives to the end of the story. Obviously, Oda is very hesitant to kill characters. He's very hesitant to kill characters, but it's just like... I feel like with Aokiji, it just makes a lot of sense. He's sitting there with the Blackbeard pirates, right? They don't fully trust him. He's got one of the strongest fruits in existence. There's just several factors there that make me think, like, why wouldn't the Blackbeard pirates kill him at some point in time, right? Especially if he's still working with Sword or something like that, right? I also think that Aokiji's a tricky situation. He's a tricky character because he's got a lot of blood on his hands, right? Aokiji has a lot of blood on his hands, and he's a character that we view as a good guy at this point, but he's not through and through a good guy, right? He is a character that, you know, did a lot of terrible things on behalf of the Marines, and he was at least able to stand back and step back and understand that there's lines that are maybe being crossed here or there that he doesn't approve of, but he's still going along with it, right? Aokiji is actually it's interesting that Sengoku recommended Aokiji to become Fleet Admiral because Aokiji is essentially the equivalent of Sengoku. They both are very, very similar in that they understand right and wrong, but they're both generally, for the most part, going to be taking the Marines side. They're going to be defaulting to what they're supposed to do at the end of the day, according to their chain of command, even if they understand what's correct or incorrect. Now, they're not going to go and take very heinous actions themselves, right? Like things like, extremist actions like an Akainu might do or something like that. But at the same time, if those things happen on their watch, they're going to be upset about it, but they're not exactly going to get in the way of what the Marines as an overall are doing, right? And they both had a very, very, very similar, like the parallel between Sengoku and Aokiji is very, very similar in the sense that what we learned with Aokiji was that he was responsible for this whole terrible, or at least partially responsible. He was complicit in the whole Ohara Buster Call event, right? But he did make the one personal decision to let Robin go. That's really, really big. It's very similar to me, to Sengoku, and Sengoku's storyline with Law. Or sorry, not Law, with Corazon, right? The Sengoku Corazon situation, Sengoku Law situation, right? Like, the Sengoku and Aokiji, they both have a very similar understanding of right and wrong, but they're both defaulting to what, authority is instructing them to do, what they've been trained to do, etc. But they do make these minor concessions where they go with their own sense of morality in these small moments, these human moments with individual characters like a Robin, like a Law, like a Corazon. So that's really, really sweet to see, but I don't think that's the type of character that we're going to want to have as Fleet Admiral at the end of the story. Because at the end of the day, look at the course of Fleet Admirals, right? So Sengoku was kind of the more neutral figure, right? And he's still going to carry out the general unjust authority of the world government for the most part, but he himself is a relatively neutral figure, right? Then we're getting to the dark part of the story, the big finale, right? So things have to shift, right? We've got to shift away from a neutral state of the world to a more conflicted state of the world. So that's why you shift from Sengoku, who's kind of middle ground, over to Akainu. Makes more sense for big bad villain of the Marines for the end fight of the story. And I like to think that in the finale of the story, we're shifting to a truly just and good Fleet Admiral, which would be Fujitora. And the one thing that Fujitora did that strikes me as really, really, really important for the correct Fleet Admiral of the Marines to have, to properly represent, I guess, what the Marines should be in One Piece, is that he was able to bow to King Riku. And that is huge because he understands that the Marines are not, they're not on a pedestal above everybody else, right? The Marines have to be able to apologize. That's something that I think sets him up, honestly, as probably the best. This is all stuff that I think I'm just figuring out right now as I'm talking about it, because I'm like, Aokiji or Fujitora, what makes the most sense? I think it's Fujitora. I think Smoker would be great down the line, 10 years down the line, but he's nowhere near strong enough right now. I don't think Kobe's going to be anywhere near strong enough right now. So I'm going to go with Fujitora. Good question. Hybrid says, hey Morj, which team are you supporting this season, NBA? This season I'm supporting... You guys are going to laugh at me, so it's the Lakers. I just want to see LeBron win again. Leave me alone. I just want to see LeBron win again. I just want to see LeBron win again, man. Ender Ayanami says, Fire Punch is Kino, definitely worth a read, and I personally prefer it over Chainsaw Man. I'll give it a read. I'll give it a shot. I love Fujimoto. Fujimoto's style is just so distinctly different from at least all of the other shit that I read by a long shot. I love Fujimoto's style. I think Goodbye Eri, show me another one-shot that's like that. Because I'm not saying it's the... People, when I gas up Chainsaw Man and Fujimoto stuff, I think people, want to fight over it. Well, it's not as good as this or that or whatever. I'm just his style, his way of thinking, read Goodbye Eri and tell me that doesn't come from, an insanely convoluted headspace of a dude that's got a tremendous amount of creativity and an extremely bold writing style in terms of he doesn't give a fuck about a lot of shit. I loved Goodbye Eri, so give me another one shot like that. Mark Ross says, why do you think that Zoro, Mark Ross, Yonko for 2 months, good to see. Why do you think that Zoro traded the Sandai for the Nidai? Panels of him talking to Vegapunk show the Nidai pattern. If Zoro traded up for Nidai Kitetsu off screen, there's going to be, I will have something to say. I think that's so ridiculously huge that I'm not even going to think about that. Phantom Greyfire says, Miss Super from Behonort, after talk with one of the mods, I decided to start a search for a doctor for hormone therapy. The one I met today was shit, so wish me luck, not giving up. I do wish you luck, Behonort. I wish you luck. I'm sure that there's more doctors you can find for that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but now they're telling me it's not football. I have to say football. This is getting ridiculous. Mark Ross says, have you read God of High School? 2 chapters left. No, I actually had a friend in high school who read God of High School, and it actually made me hate the series because we had very, it's rare as is in high school. I wouldn't really share that I like anime manga or whatever. So it was rare as is that, I knew one other person who was reading anime manga reading manga at the time, right? So that's rare enough as is, but our tastes could not be more different because the stuff that he liked was this series called Noblesse, which I tried. Spoilers, it's ass. And then God of High School, which I did also try, but he kept shitting on One Piece. That was the thing. It was just a competitive thing for no reason. I was open to trying other series, but he was like, oh, you read One Piece? That's so he would just shit on One Piece over and over. And I'm in high school, so at that point you're more, now I don't care. Now I don't care. Now I shit on One Piece sometimes, as you guys know. In general, I don't, but I do too sometimes, right? But like, now I don't care. If somebody says, you know, I've seen it all, right? I'm talking up Fujimoto. Somebody's going to come in here and be like, Chainsaw Man's ass, read some other stuff, blah, blah, blah. I don't care at this point, okay? But when you're in high school, you get defensive about that type of stuff, especially when, like, One Piece was very, very precious to me, right? One Piece was the secret love that I had, essentially, that, you know, I would go back to week after week, bright spot of every week, getting to go read a One Piece chapter. It wasn't on Fridays back then. It would have been so dope if I could read One Piece chapters on... Actually, it's probably better that it was more so in the middle of the week back in high school, because you want something to spice up the middle of the week. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, One Piece was very precious to me. So when I'm talking to somebody in real life about manga, one of the very few people that actually also reads manga, and they're just like, One Piece is ass, I'm just like, well, this makes me not want to like this other shit that you're recommending. So God of High School, I will never try again. I'll just believe that it's bad forever. That's where I'm at. Anyway. Sheriff Laffy, member for 2 months. Yonko, do you have a character in One Piece that everyone seems to dislike that you really like? For a minute, it was Wiper, but then I found out everybody liked Wiper. Hold on, I skipped a few. Let me make sure I'm not skipping stuff. Hold on. I will just go in order after this, but that I like that everyone else seems to dislike. For me, it's tricky because at first I had Hawkins, okay? At first I had Hawkins. I really liked Hawkins. Everyone made fun of Hawkins. Now I can't defend Hawkins anymore. Then it was Kid. People don't remember. I had really high hopes for Kid. Like, people have been making fun of Kid for the longest time. For the longest time, people have been making fun of Kid. Okay? It got a little better towards the beginning of Wano when Kid was being portrayed as Luffy's equal. Towards the beginning of Wano. Then Kid got, made fun of for a long-ass time for Act 2, Act 3, all of Act 3. And then he even participated in taking down Big Mom, and he still made fun of... Like, I was riding with Kid all the way through till the conclusion of the Big Mom fight was coming around, and I was just like... It's not even like... It's just... There's nothing to latch onto there. I don't care about... Well, it would be nice if he did better combat stuff. It would be really nice if he did better combat stuff, if he used his Devil Fruit ability better, if he had more cool moments or whatever. That would be really nice. But even just character-wise, I don't know what I'm supposed to latch onto there. Like, it's interesting as a concept to have a rival for Luffy that seems to have a similar mentality, that's also a Conqueror's Haki user, etc., that's also very bold and brave, that's also very reckless. That's the main thing I'd say. But it doesn't really go, like... Does he exist purely to be like, well, that's what could have happened to Luffy, ha 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 ha, he could have gotten fucked up 50 times over in the New World, and he could just be continuously mocked as, like, second fiddle to these other pirates or whatever that are of his same generation but seem to consistently do better than him? I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to say? I'll say this, there were a lot of characters that everybody seems to hate that I really like, but bit by bit, Big Mom was one of them. Bit by bit, those characters I've shifted over to not enjoying as well either. I guess just because I got tired of waiting on them to do stuff, or like for their characters to be fleshed out in any manner or whatever. I'd say out of current characters, I'd say Chopper I see get a lot of hate on Twitter. I like Chopper a lot as a Stride. He's one of my favorite Strides for sure. Let's go with that. Banwart says, I saw people saying, haha, Oda thinks trans women are a disease and it's one of the most bad faith takes ever. Yeah, I think people were either reading too much into that or kind of like... interpreting that in their own way to make a joke. OP is one of the most pro-trans stories in Animanga. We literally had Kiku last arc. I mean, I would go so far as to say Impel Down was really, really big for that, right? Even if Oda kind of has some, I don't know, behind the times portrayals of trans people, right? In terms of like he will sometimes use it as a gag. I think the messaging behind how he portrays the New Kama Land in Impel Down as the freest place in the world's greatest prison, right? Like, that's a very, very interesting concept in that the gender fluidity or whatever that you have there, that's Oda's representation of, like, a place of, like, total freedom, which is interesting. Pina says, Fire Punch is easily the second greatest story ever told. CSM still clears, though. The second greatest story ever told. I'll give Fire Punch a try, then. Dr. Farewell says, have you seen the CSM opening? There's a lot of movie references. Yeah, there's clips going around and stuff that really broke down all of the references. I am excited, guys, for Chainsaw Man content coming soon. There's Chainsaw Man content coming soon, and Fujimoto's, I don't even want to say, like, his attachment to film or how much he works film, how much he's inspired by cinema. It's really, really interesting to see in his stories. Guys, we got to get the likes up. This is getting ridiculous now. We're at 1,000 viewers, but 200 likes. That means that the vast majority of you dislike what you're looking at right now. You dislike this stream. That makes no sense. Let's at least get it to 50-50. All right, let's get to 500 likes. I think that's reasonable. Yeah, everyone's just like, Kid is just walking out. Billy Bob says people hate Kid just to feel cool. I even got in on it. You know what? Okay, it's kind of like, imagine you're at school. And like there's this kid. There's this kid, right? He's getting bullied 24/7. Everyone's like, I don't know, what did they call the words people called kids back at school? You can't say on stream. So let's just say they called him a dummy or a loser or something. Yeah, kid's a loser, L, blah, blah. They're calling this kid a loser, right? And then you're like, hey, this kid's my friend. Back off. I think he's got a lot of potential. One day, he's going to do something that impresses all of us. All right? And one day, there's more to his character than what you guys see. He's not just this loser that you guys seem to believe that he is. And so you're defending this kid and you befriend him. And then over time, you begin to realize that all of the kids that were bullying him were right, and that he is a loser, and that there's actually not that much more to his character personality than what he's initially been painted out to be. So then you join in on the bullying a little bit too. I don't know if that's actually a relatable story to anybody. It actually doesn't really make that much. Just imagine that's just what happens, okay? That's basically the analogy as to my feelings towards Kid. I defended him for long enough that I feel like I'm justified in now making some jokes about him, okay? The Frankie stuff, I don't think that's even that mean. That was more so just funny to me. I thought it was just funny. I don't think that was even shitting on Kid that much. I think that was just funnier to think of like Frankie having Kid's magnetism fruit and what he could do with it. Well, it was shitting on Kid. I'm lying if I'm saying it's not. But it was a byproduct of praising Frankie. Nicholas Froats, I was caught up in the Frankie hype at the start of this Egghead Island arc and what we're going to get to see of him. Nicholas Froats says, will post-time skip be the same length as pre? Wouldn't it be longer? That would have the series ending at chapter 1... Oh, no, probably about the same, right? Have the series ending at chapter 1196. I don't think Oda can finish the final saga by then. Well, first of all, I think that Oda's going to want to end it at, like, some evenish number, like 1,200 or something. I don't think he's going to get to the end of the story and be like, 1,196. The perfect chapter to end this story on. With a nice, even, round... Could have stretched the story to 1,200 chapters. That would be an epic thing to say, but no. I think 1,196, that's what I want to tell my kids. I don't think that Oda's going to be like that. I think we get to 1,200 at least. Can Oda finish the final saga by then? I think at the rate that we're going, because we're kind of flying now, because the difference that I see between this is what I've been saying for the last couple streams and the last couple chapter reviews. I feel like there's a bit of a difference. Maybe it's too early to tell throughout Egghead Island right now, but I think that so far there's a bit of a difference between how Oda is approaching the start of this arc versus other arcs, in that he seems now to be willing to mix in outside stuff and outside events happening with what's specific to a given arc. And I think that Oda's been cutting more. There's just, at least at what I'm looking at Egghead Island right now, I don't see any BS. What does that mean? When I say I don't see any BS, I'm looking at where the Straw Hats are at right now. I'm looking at what's going on outside and who's approaching the Straw Hats right now. I'm seeing the plot threads that are set up. So far, it all seems like it's extremely, extremely juicy, important stuff. I don't see any fluff. I don't see any random bullshit. Okay, how am I explaining this? So, who do we have okay, other example. We get to Zoe. Right? We get to Zoe. Zoe, great arc, short arc, nice little exposition arc, right? But we get to Zoe, and we're meeting all these characters. We're meeting Wanda. We're meeting this sheep, Father Yomo. We get to know the fucking monkey that watches out for intruders and stuff. The monkey that doesn't do his job. We we meet other reindeers that Chopper has a brief romance with, but not really. We meet their version of a doctor or whatever that also had to get saved by Chopper. We're like meeting all this stuff. We're learning the Mink's greetings and stuff. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of meandering before we kind of get to, you know, Oda's kind of playing us with stuff like that chapter that ended with the Minks being all mysterious and spooky, like, oh, come meet your friend the corpse and stuff like that. It's just slower, right? It's just slower. It takes a while before we find out that Jack's back on his way. It takes a while before we find out that, oh, there's road poneglyphs and stuff here. There's like secrets to Zoe. There's a reason to us being in Zoe, right? It takes a while for Kinemon and them to come back. If we get to Wano, Act 1, shockingly, Act 1 of Wano, shockingly different pace from Onigashima. Shockingly different pace. But, you know, we're spending Act 1, we're learning about... If you go back to Act 1, you'll be shocked at the number of things that just have zero relevance to the rest of the story. We learn shit about there's a firefighting squad in Wano. That's apparently important. There's a class system in Wano. Wano's a heavily class-based society, and there's the noble class and the warrior class and shit like that, and that's a big deal. Spoilers, it's not a big deal at all. It doesn't matter at all for the rest of fucking Wano, because they're all slaves to Kaido and Orochi. Anyway, it's random stuff. Batman, Gazelle Man stuff. Like, it's the fucking sumo wrestler, Urashima, that we spent 5 chapters dealing with. Hold'em, that we spent the better half of Act 1 dealing with. When I look at what's happening at Egghead Island right now, I see no bullshit. I see 6 characters that we're set to meet. They're all Vegapunk. That seems very, very, you know, streamlined and tight to me. I don't see anybody else on this island that's kind of taking up our attention for no reason. It's just Vegapunk on this island. I see Bonnie here. We want the answers to Bonnie. The answers to Bonnie are tied directly to Kuma. Kuma's on his way right now. He's being shipped right over. Delivery Express. 2 chapters into the arc, we're getting Kuma Express overnight Amazon Prime delivered straight to our door. We've got Lucci and Kaku, so we've got the villains of the arc already set up on our way here. There's not a lot of bullshit going on in Egghead Island, and he's doing all this while moving the other shit along. I didn't ask for demand to see Blackbeard again anytime soon. We just got our Blackbeard quota filled up 2 chapters ago, right? In a great chapter, spectacular chapter. But he's back again, and he's doing mad work. Like, Oda's checking boxes off on cover pages and at, like, chapter conclusions, cliffhangers, and everything, like, things like that, right? Like, Blackbeard's already got the key to reading the poneglyphs. He picked that up in a cover story. And at the same time, he's swooping in to grab a road poneglyph. Plus, we might be about to learn what's up with his body because Law's about to interact with him, and Law's a doctor with the Opeopenimi fruit, which lends itself to figuring out what the fuck is going on with somebody's internal organs and stuff. So we might be about to find that out, right? We might have all the pieces of the Rocky Port incident about to be set up together because Oda's already got Kobe with Blackbeard, Law with Blackbeard, potentially tying into Kid, whatever Kid's about to do with Wang Ji and stuff like that. It's just a lot that's moving very, very quickly. I don't think Law's going to die or anything like that, but it's a lot that's moving together very, very quickly, and I think the simple thing is that Oda's just... I think he genuinely is just streamlining because I don't think I've seen an irrelevant character in some time now. Now, the one exception could be those random new sword people on the side that we just met, but I feel like they're not going to be that... I think that... I don't count that as random stuff because it's a part of what we already want to see more of. We want to learn more about Sword, and we always knew that it's not just going to be, you know, Kobe, X-Drake, etc. So who are the other Sword members? This fits into what we already wanted to learn more about. We did want to see more Sword members. So, what was the original question? Oda can't finish the final saga by then. I don't know if he, I don't know what the speed of what he can do is, but I do genuinely see a streamlining that seems to have happened, a streamlining that seems to have taken place, and he's moving at a pace that's pretty refreshing to me and pretty promising because it also doesn't feel rushed. I think we genuinely have gotten to spend a good amount of time exploring Vegapunk's lab and having fun there, the usual One Piece fun that you kind of want at these breather moments and arcs. I think we've gotten our fill of that, and we're not sacrificing actually moving things along, and we're not trying to force in lots of characters that we don't really need in the story. So look, I'm excited. That's where I'm at. All right. Hybrid says, would you put Zoro as the 3rd strongest supernova? The 3rd strongest supernova? Who's number 2? You might be confused. You might be under the impression that Blackbeard is one of the supernova. Blackbeard is one of the worst generation, but he is not counted as one of the 11 supernova. So, I could understand if you thought that the order might be something like Blackbeard Luffy Zoro or Luffy Blackbeard Zoro. But because Blackbeard is not a supernova, I don't really know who this mysterious third figure would be. Certainly not Training Wheels hockey users Law and Captain Kidd. Leo Recta says, do you think Zoro fights Shiryu because he's not the first mate? Let me make one thing very clear, by the way. A lot of people recently were saying, oh, Law used hockey to counter Doc Q's Devil Fruit. That means Law's a really good hockey user, right? No, it doesn't. You know how we know that Law's not a really good hockey user? Because we've seen Law fight a lot of other characters. I saw people literally trying to defend Law as a hockey user because people were bringing up on Twitter like, oh, remember Law beat Virgo though? That's like a thing. Law beat Virgo. I don't even know what tier you put Virgo in because it's so fucking far from the top. Like, at best, Virgo's a Toby Roppo, right? At best, Virgo is a Toby Roppo. What does Law beat? Does Law beating a Toby Roppo means that he has good hockey? No. We know where Law's hockey's at. Near non-existent, at least compared to real hockey masters. He does not have advanced armament hockey. We know that for a fact. Right? Every damage that he did to a Yonko was not through the use of hockey. It was through the use of his Devil Fruit, which can just go into your interior, right? Not through the use of hockey. He does not have advanced armament hockey, right? Observation hockey, we know he has it. Everybody fucking has observation hockey. Not a big deal. Conqueror's hockey, the one basic thing that is a signature of like if a character even is a notable hockey user or has a notable spirit, period, that's Conqueror's hockey. That's the one key indicator of like, oh, is this guy like a serious hockey threat or something like that? No, Law doesn't have that. Forget advanced Conqueror's hockey, right? Which is where Zoro's at. Law doesn't have the baby basic version that any decent honestly, it's embarrassing to be a pirate worth 3 billion berry, to be that big of a name and not even have Conqueror's hockey. Like, can we talk about this? I don't get why people think Law's so hype. It's embarrassing. It's genuinely embarrassing to be a pirate like Law and not have Conqueror's hockey. Who is this guy? If Law didn't have his fruit, you know where he would be? He would not stand out from the rest of his crew. It would just be like, oh, Law and the East Blue. Actually, I saw somebody the other day saying like, on Twitter, like, Law with his East Blue crew, his East Blue level crew, which is actually very accurate. I'm like, how do we even scale these guys? Like, it was a serious discussion last stream. It was like Beppo versus an actual bear. How would that go? Because I'm just going to say, if I had to fight like an actual bear or Beppo, I would take my chances against Beppo definitely over an actual bear. But yeah, anyway, if you took away Law's fruit, like, how far down does he fall down the tier list? Right? Is he even on there? Is he a blip on the tier list? I don't know where he is. I wouldn't be able to find him. I would need a magnifying glass or something. Luffy without his Devil Fruit? Still going even with Kaido. Still giving Kaido a high diff, extreme diff fight without his Devil Fruit. Straight up. Fought him for like 20 chapters or something like that. Barely made use of his Devil Fruit. That's all I'm saying. All right. Leo Rector says, do you think Zoro fights Shiryu? Yep, because he's the first mate. Because he's not the first mate, Jesus, and he's probably not the strongest in the crew either, because his fruit got beat by pre-time skip Sanji. I'm sure that Shiryu's usage is going to be much better than Absalom's, and Shiryu will probably have Devil Fruit Awakening, and Shiryu probably, well, I won't say probably, but there's an entirely possible chance that Shiryu's sword eats a Devil Fruit, so he might be a dual-wielding Devil Fruit user at the end of the day. I don't know why I throw that in as like an assumed possibility. It's just kind of because like the Blackbeard pirates, their whole thing is accumulating as many Devil Fruits as possible. So I'm also kind of like the fruit that Shiryu has right now isn't that great. So I kind of like to think that, hey, maybe his sword is also like, he's going to stack up on Devil Fruits. So clear fruit, but then also his weapon having a Devil Fruit. I do think that Zoro fights Shiryu. Yeah, let's get to 500 likes. Ivan back from the card shop says, dragons are real. Ryuma is confirmed to have killed one by Hogback. My idea was that Lunarians are part dragons. Oh, that's true. Ryuma did kill. I forgot that Wanted is canon. That's true. I guess I just don't know how to reconcile that with what we know, because we've never seen any of this other shit, right? We don't actually see dragons. We don't actually see phoenixes. We don't see a giant golden Buddha, whatever the fuck Sengoku is. My idea was that Lunarians are part dragons, just like all minks are half mammals. That's interesting. Mr. Crescent says, thank you, Morj. Mr. Crescent, a 2-month Yonko. Thank you, Morj. Whataburger is so mid and overrated. Way too much burger and the patty tastes like ass. It's one of those things where if people didn't hype up Whataburger to me, I would have tried it and been like, oh, that's really good. That's really good. But I don't like Whataburger as is. I think the bigger thing is, so I actually disagree with you. I think that their patty's actually decent. I think that their buns are really bad, though. Sarthik Das says, I think it would be great to see some more contrast and deviations from Inherited Will. Example, I think it would be really powerful to see Luffy cry on Laugh Tale as opposed to laugh. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Wonder if Luffy will laugh at Laugh Tale. We get a replay of that scene. Michael Mutten says, Morg Stoner Gang from Cape Town, ZA. What's that? Busy with a screenplay at the moment, with good old One Piece chat in the background, happily to finally catch a live. Nice to have you here, man. Appreciate it. Good luck with the screenplay. Ethereal Split says, can we find out about Lulusia through Lucci? Because their name begins with L? I don't think both their names begin with Lu. I don't know about that. It would be interesting. I don't think... I wonder how much CP0 knows. I wonder how much CP0 knows. Did they just did they just learn everything? Because it sounded like they were afraid to pry in the first place. So I'm curious. Okay, let me make sure I didn't skip anything earlier. Okay, Professor Clover says, I know you said you don't think Law will die, but wouldn't Blackbeard really want his fruit? It's OP even without the immortality surgery. I definitely think that, look, Blackbeard should want the fruit really, really bad. I'm surprised he didn't mention that. The reason I don't think Law will die is because the way that Law's death would be Law's a bigger character than Ace at this point. It's hard to explain because it feels a little different because Ace's significance as a character is still to this day much higher than Law, because if you just go back through the just the build up to what Ace's death meant, right? Everything about what it meant, not just that it was invoking the wrath of Whitebeard, who at the time was considered the king of the sea, right? Potentially opening up a war that would destroy the whole world, right? Essentially a pirate's version of World War I, II. It wasn't just that, also learning that he's Gold Roger's son, the factual closeness to Luffy and that he's Luffy's brother. I think Luffy and Law at this point, Law is probably as close to, like, Luffy would probably consider Law like he considers a crewmate, right? Similar to how Roger says Roger viewed Garp in a similar light, I think. I think that Luffy at this point has worked side by side with Law and they've had each other's back through so many situations. I think that Luffy trusts Law like a crewmate, but Ace was Luffy's literal brother. It's hard to explain, but I think that even though Ace was a more major character death in concept than Law, Law is a more major character than Ace at this point in the story, right? Now, the bigger thing is that with Ace's death, Oda there was so much build up to that event, right? Oda really, if Oda kills characters so rarely, and I feel like the way he does it is either it's some characters we don't give a shit about, like Izzo or some shit that he's just like, fuck it, doesn't matter. Okay, we killed a character, yay. Or it's like legitimate character deaths where Oda is going to have significant build up to it because he wants to maximize the significance of this event, right? So Ace and Whitebeard, those deaths, like, that was a tremendous saga in the making, right? I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere. Even just with the initial encounter that Ace had with Blackbeard, it didn't just end there. I mean, it wasn't just even starting with that. Like, this was something that was starting from Drum Kingdom with Ace and the Blackbeard Pirates, that storyline picking up there, and spilling over to Alabasta, then Jaya, then it's this constant running thing in the background. Shanks talking to Whitebeard, do we have to stop this event? All of it leading up to Ace and Blackbeard finally meeting, having their big epic duel, and then, from there, it leads to Ace's death. So, with something of that magnitude happening in this story, right, like killing a character like Ace or Law, I don't think it's just going to happen out of the blue, because this would feel really, 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 really out of the blue if Law died next chapter. I mean, we just started Egghead Island. The tone is still very, very light. Law's in the middle of a storyline, right? Like, he's trying to find out about the Will of D. There's so little setup, essentially. Like, it would just feel so random and so abrupt to me to just have Blackbeard suddenly back this chapter. Law's barely begun his quest. We're in the middle of a setup. We're in the middle of an arc that's about some totally different shit. The tone is very light. We just finished a big battle. And then Oda just kills off Law, like one of the biggest characters in the series, out of the blue like that. I just don't see Oda doing it like that. because other deaths that we imagine in the story that could happen, like a Shanks, right? That is also something that has been built up for the longest time. Shanks and Blackbeard, what that would mean for Blackbeard to kill Shanks. I think that that's something that Oda has set up for so long that it feels like his style to kill off Shanks after that. I mean, even a death like Pedro's death was a long time coming. Like, it was building up throughout that arc. Like, Pedro was like, this is my last voyage. He's already given up so many years of his life. We got that flashback repeatedly. Pedro kept saying that this is kind of it. Like, if I can help these guys go on, like, I think that these are the guys that are going to bring the dawn of the world, so I'm going to do whatever in my power to get them out of here. So even for a character like Pedro, we get so much setup to that. I think Law's death here would just be, it's too abrupt. People say it's similar to the Ace scenario, but it's really, really not, because the Ace Blackbeard scenario, that wasn't random. That was something that was arcs and arcs and arcs and arcs and arcs in the making. Like, we'd been waiting on that matchup for hundreds of chapters. This is very different from the Ace scenario to me. I mean, this is if you want to compare it to something, it's a lot closer to the Hancock scenario, which we got like a few chapters back, right? This is identical to the Hancock scene. So if Oda has Law killed off here, I will just be shocked. I don't know if I would even like it. It would depend on how it goes to kill off Law here. And you guys know I'm not a big Law fan, but like, I would hope that his character gets a better sort of lead up to his death or something like that, or some greater form of closure to his storyline. Yeah, it just feels more like the Hancock scenario, where I do think that Law could get easily captured here or something like that. As for why Blackbeard wouldn't kill him, there is a small possibility here, which is that Law might be one of the few people who is like under penalty of death, like under fear of death. Like, I will kill you if you don't do this. I wonder if he can actually remove the Ope Ope no Mi from his body because of what the Ope Ope no Mi is, you know? I wonder if the ability itself would allow him to remove it from his body as like a final act. I doubt it, because he seemed to refuse Doflamingo, but that was Doflamingo. So he kind of just wanted to do that out of spite. But I wonder with Blackbeard if he could remove the Ope Ope no Mi. Of course, that would make Law completely fucking useless in the story. He may as well be I don't know, like a first half Grand Line level character at that point. But I'm exaggerating for the record. Alternative is Law escapes, right? Blackbeard gets the poneglyphs, Law escapes. That's the alternative. I don't know. It's tricky. Okay. Where are we at? Alioto5 says, we know from Germa that devil fruits affect the lineage factor. We know from Vegapunk's dragon fruit and SBS Q&A that SAD is made with animal DNA. The devil fruits affect the lineage factor. Wait, this is a 1 out of 4. Hold on, this is complicated. We also know zones hold the will of what they transform into. This indicates zone fruits are made with the lineage factor and will of their creature. Interesting. Seemingly unrelated, we also know that the god is a title in One Piece that's tossed around, as all gods in the series so far are not actual gods. This makes me think that the Nika fruit was made from a species that at least one member was labeled as a god, named after the sun. If there's a whole race of like Nika characters out there, that'd be pretty insane. But that is some interesting points. They would have to come from space. Dude, that's the only way. Law Shambled says, do you believe we'll see Blackbeard versus Law, or could a situation happen where Shanks intervenes as repayment for Law saving Luffy at Marineford? After really showed up to save Boa, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. AZ Fan says, people are talking about if Vegapunk will be good or bad, but there are 6, so they could all take different sides. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's interesting to think, like, are these all natural sides of Vegapunk's personality, and like his true persona is a fairly mixed individual? I am very interested in where Oda's going to go with Vegapunk. Sheriff Laffy says, you mentioned Luffy hasn't gotten any respect as Yonko. Could CP0 be there to give Luffy his Yonko moment? Also, do you think Rayleigh dies? I don't... That's the thing. I think that... Okay, people... when I was giving that Yonko take, I was seeing in chat people saying, like, no, that's not true. Luffy's getting respect, etc. It's like... I didn't mean to say it in a way that, like, it feels unsatisfying, I guess, that Luffy's a Yonko right now, because that's not what I mean. I know that we have not yet been in the context of characters who would be impressed by Luffy being a Yonko. I think that it's kind of towing... I mean, that's also not true, because I think that, like, the way I view it is basically, like, it will feel like Luffy is a Yonko to me when people start treating Luffy as though Kaido showed up in front of them as though Big Mom showed up in front of them, as though Shanks showed up in front of them, as though Blackbeard showed up in front of them, as though Whitebeard showed up in front of them. Like, that's just what it means, right? And people are saying, like, well, Luffy's a new Yonko, etc. He's a new Yonko. It's like, yeah, but you know the story's about to fucking end, right? Like, this is not, like, that's the whole point of the title Yonko, which is that, like, once you get the title, that means you've got that, like, you've built up your resume. You got it. People should be impressed by it at this point, right? Do I have to wait till, like, Luffy, like, are we gonna get to the end of the story, Luffy's called Pirate King, and then, like, people are still not impressed, and people are like, well, he's the new Pirate King, you know? He just became Pirate King. Of course people aren't gonna be, like, come on. Like, what more does, Luffy's resume right now is insane. Despite what you think that the world government may or may not have hidden from the world, it doesn't matter. By the time Luffy was done with Whole Cake Island, the world was already calling him an emperor. This is just the cherry on top, which is being called a literal Yonko, right? So, I think that, like, how characters should react or whatever, it's whatever. I get that we've mainly been meeting relatively strong or established characters, so they're not going to go crazy over Luffy being a Yonko. I'm just saying, to me, what I personally think would be really epic would be if when they ran into Bonnie is not like, not like scared or something like that, but the title Yonko not being casually brushed off, if that makes sense. I still think it's important that Bonnie is headstrong and clashes and butts heads with Luffy or whatever. The idea that at least a part of Vegapunk was like, oh, a Yonko crew, I could just capture these guys or whatever. I think that that's kind of insane when, you know, it's established pretty quickly that no, these guys could take you, like Vegapunk, these guys could take you out pretty effortlessly if they so chose. But still, a part of Vegapunk did not care that it's a Yonko crew. I'm just kind of like, I get it. These are established characters. It's the same way I don't think Lucci or Kaku are going to be shitting themselves that Luffy's a Yonko right now because they're established characters. They know Luffy. I get it. I'm just like, it would be cool if, like, kind of the way that Luffy's rep at Jaya really shook some people up, right? Or Luffy's rep at Sabaody when he first showed up at Sabaody really shook people up. Or even Luffy's second time around at Sabaody, that really shook people up. Like, I'm sure we will get that in an arc down the line, right? The actual sense that Luffy is a Yonko. Because at the moment, it feels like Yonko has been tacked onto his name, but nobody's really treating him any different, right? And people are definitely giving him less respect than the other Yonko, see Green Bull, for example, right? Where are we at? Okay, hold on. Yamildia says, sure, you should get a Omukade mythical zone for his sword. The Omukade is a mythical centipede of Japanese lore that's large as 7 mountains and venomous. I don't really know anything about that, but that sounds pretty crazy. That would be cool. Gustavo says, off topic, but have you ever seen Code Geass? It's fire. Yeah, so I watched, okay, so no, I'm not going to spoil anything for Code Geass. All I'll say is this, is that, there's 2 seasons of Code Geass, right? When I was watching the first season of Code Geass, I loved it. I thought it was fucking great. I really, really, really enjoyed Code Geass. I really, really, really loved that show while I was watching it. I got to the end of the first season. There is certain things that happen at the end of the first season that made me feel as though a tremendous amount of what happened over the course of that season didn't really matter. I'm all for, I mean, you know me, I push for the raid failing, right? I'm all for characters, for things not necessarily going as planned, and for there to be significant moments of tension or even things going wrong or like failure, etc., right? But not to, I guess, the point I felt at the end of season 1 of Code Geass, where I felt as though, why did I even watch that entire season? And I did not end up giving season 2 a chance, and that might be completely my bad, because maybe season 2 makes it feel like everything from season 1 was really warranted, and maybe season 2 is phenomenal, etc. I'm just saying, keep in mind when I was watching, I was young. I was just young. All right, I dropped the series. I was a kid. I was still in high school, probably like 9th grade, 10th grade, or something like that. And so I dropped it after the first season because I didn't really. Maybe, I don't know what grade I was in exactly, but I hadn't graduated high school yet. So I'm just going through anime or whatever. And like, this one really has me hooked. I get to the end of the first season. I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch a full another season of this one. So that's it. But I really enjoyed it for what it was while I was watching it. Ivan back from the card shop says, on the topic of death, still think it's funny people said it's good Kinemon didn't die because he had to meet his wife, which was completely irrelevant. I actually like Kinemon and Otsuru's little romance on the side. I mean, for what little it was or whatever, but I do think that's a really fucking stupid reason to keep him alive, because it's not even like Kinemon didn't need to die. It's more so just don't. This is the frustrating thing, which is like, don't write a full death scene if you're not going to kill the character like that, right? Like, just don't do that part. Like, it's so avoidable. If you want Kinemon to meet his wife, let him meet his wife, but don't pretend that he, like, just don't write that scene then, right? And also don't write so many death flags in for Kinemon over the course of the arc, because there's a big difference between, like, if you write death flags for a character and then you kill them off, that's good in a way because it sort of mentally softly prepares the reader for potentially letting go of this character, right? But you shouldn't do that as just a weird red herring thing to try and trick the reader into thinking that the arc is going to be significantly more dramatic and serious than it actually is. Because that's just like the reverse. That's almost like cheating, in my opinion. Because it's like we're gearing up for Onigashima to be this really heavy, dramatic affair. And then, I don't know, I guess Kiku's random brother that was pulled out of Nekomamushi's ass, that's who dies. It's like, okay. Sheriff Lafitte says, Law should remove the Ope Ope no Mi and give it to Beppo. Imagine if Beppo eats him and he's just like amazing. He's just like OP as fuck. Kid Smitty 94 says, been a while since someone died smiling. RIP Law, but at the end of the arc. I mean, I'm down for Law to die, but not like this, not like this. Daniel says, I find it funny that Blackbeard keeps running from people who actually know where the One Piece is. That's actually a really good point. Which is like, if Blackbeard really wanted a route to One Piece, he could just like grab Rayleigh and shake him by the throat and be like, tell me, well, really, he knows Rayleigh wouldn't spill, I guess, but it is a good point, right? It is a good point that it's like, the people that know where One Piece is are the people that Blackbeard would rather not fuck with, so he just goes about it this way. Hybrid says, you think Luffy will meet Bon Clay again? A true Straw Hat. I don't think Bon Clay is a true Straw Hat. Let me just say that. I think he's a true lifelong friend, but I don't remember Luffy giving him that invite, which is very awkward, because it's like, imagine if they do reunite again and like, they're like, you did all this stuff for me or whatever, and then Bon Clay's like, and I'm a Straw Hat, right? And Luffy's like, you're a really, really good friend, Bon Clay. But I'm a Straw Hat, right? And Luffy's like, I gotta go. Musuve says, I can't even read this. Never mind. Hades' Blackbeard gave Perseus, Shiryu, a helmet that turns him invisible to kill Medusa. Oh, shit! That's interesting. Hades gave Perseus a helmet that turns him invisible to kill Medusa. Shiryu has the invisibility devil fruit and will kill Boa. I don't think this would be true until Blackbeard wanted her devil fruit. I don't think Boa's gonna die. She's just too much of a gag character, to be honest, to actually die. She has her slave past, but that's been referenced like once ever. It's been forgotten forever. That's just not how I view Boa anymore. I just don't view her as like I view her as a gag character. I don't know what killing her would really entail dramatically. Now, thing is, one thing that really threw me with the Law Doc Q shit was, and I've talked about this before last year, but I've had more time to think about it, which is just like how Haki interacts with devil fruits. Again, like, no matter how much you want to gas up Law, I go too overboard with my downplaying of Law. I know that, but this is my stream. Read what the stream. It's Morj channel, Morj stream. This is just me speaking. This is not shit that I would actually like put into a polished or like structured video as like serious arguments. But it is stuff that I do think and feel. It's like take some of it with a grain of salt. Okay, I know I exaggerate and probably over downplay Law, but no matter how you spin it, Law has never been portrayed as particularly great in Haki compared to a lot of other characters, right? He's not being treated like a Luffy or a Zoro or like any of these Yonko or even at least like Kid who has conquers Haki. That's never been shown to be Law's thing. Maybe that changes in the future, maybe even next chapter, but that was never really shown to be Law's thing, right? He's gonna beat a character like Virgo in terms of hockey, but again, Virgo, you're talking about a character that's essentially about Toby Ropo level, maybe, right? That should be the minimum expected of Law, right? So Law has never been shown as like phenomenal in hockey. He's not a Conqueror's hockey user, etc., right? That's not his thing. For him to casually, essentially just shrug off a Devil Fruit ability like that really, really changes, because we've never seen an interaction like that. We've never seen something that blatant where like something like a Devil Fruit ability is just so easily canceled out by like a Devil Fruit ability you wouldn't expect. Like, it's not like we're talking about fist to fist with a Logia or something like that, right? This is just diseases that are taking over your body. That's a standard type of Devil Fruit ability. We would just not expect, we've never seen something like that where it's just like, okay, now it's canceled. It's done, right? The only time we got something really, really comparable was when we heard from Law himself that he couldn't teleport Kaido and Big Mom because their hockey was too high. And that seemed like one of those rare exception type things, because Kaido and Big Mom are known to be such monstrous hockey users, right? These are two Yonko. They split the sky with their hockey. That's how insane it is, right? So it makes sense that someone like Law with his powerful ability couldn't just manipulate them with his Devil Fruit. But this totally changes the game in that it's just like, okay, you don't even need to be like a godlike hockey user. You can just be like a decent hockey user and you can just cancel Devil Fruit abilities, because that's insane. Think about what that means. That means that, like, the reason I got on this topic is because we brought up Boa Hancock. For so long, we've kind of been like, wait, can't Boa like beat a lot of characters then? Because her Devil Fruit is just hacks, right? Anybody that's attracted to her, shouldn't they just be defeated by her Devil Fruit? But now this is totally different in that it's like, no, it seems like anybody that has decent hockey, like Law's level of hockey and up, could cancel Boa's Devil Fruit. It really changes how you view a character like Boa Hancock, because it's just like, what was once an OP ability, like so many abilities that you would have once thought of as OP abilities, now we kind of know they don't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. And I've always been one person who's argued that like matchups and things like that in One Piece are overrated. There is more of a like an actual power scale than people tend to want to talk about. But even I don't want it to be like that narrow, that it's just like, okay, once you've got hockey, then a Devil Fruit ability literally, like, to a degree, just doesn't straight up matter. Like, even when Blackbeard's talking like, oh, well, Boa Hancock will just turn me to stone if I let her go. Could she? Like, one, does that mean that Blackbeard's not confident enough in his own hockey to be able to cancel out Boa's Devil Fruit? But that's confusing to me, because a couple panels back, we saw Blackbeard blocking an attack that cut a mountain with hockey. So, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be one. There's two ways that this goes. One, Oda's really going to just start making Devil Fruits really irrelevant for the rest of the story to a degree. Two is that this is just going to be an annoying, inconsistent thing, which I have a feeling is more likely just based on how Oda tends to do some power things throughout the story. I think it's just going to be an annoying, inconsistent thing where it's just like, sometimes he'll be like, yeah, this doesn't work as a hockey. And then other times he'll be like, oh, this Devil Fruit does work. Well, what about hockey? Just forget about it. I mean, I would say even with Law versus like Kaido Big Mom, it's like, why is it that some of Law's abilities don't work on them, like teleporting, but then other abilities work just fine, like, I don't know, like a Gamma Knife or something like that? Doesn't make sense to me. Leia Rector says, what's your power ranking of the Straw's allies so far? That's too hard. What do I even count as allies? Do I have to count Kid and Law as allies? They're technically still rivals and stuff. I mean, Wano's probably their strongest allied nation, closely followed by Zou. I'm not going to go through every individual. If I had to go through every individual, I'd say their strongest straight-up allies, probably Yamato, Marco. Honestly, the Dukes are in there. The Dukes are in there, especially with Sulong. Yeah, Nation of Wano in general is pretty strong. Kyros was strong. They've got the Grand Fleet. I think the Grand Fleet ranking seems right to me with like Cavendish, Bartolomeo, Sai. Who else? Do we count like Hancock and stuff as allies? Do we count like Rayleigh as allies? Because that stuff throws off the whole list. Fisherman Island, surprisingly a lot of weak characters. Kind of crazy to think about because fishermen are so much stronger than humans, but their best of the best kind of suck. Like, we've got the strongest fishermen on board, pretty much. Okay. Mr. Crescent says, no one respecting Luffy as a Yonko and still fearing Kaido reminds me of how no one was scared of Goku in the Tournament of Power, but we're still scared of Frieza, even though Goku was the one who beat him. I've watched Dragon Ball Super. Wait, Tournament of Power, though. Yeah, this is Dragon Ball Super. Right? I've watched that. Isn't that just because, yeah, I mean, I get it, like, reputation-wise, that makes sense. But it's just like, in One Piece, I feel like, how do I say this? The impact of, when Luffy was called the Fifth Emperor, I don't know. That was pretty hype. We did get to see react. All I'll say is this: like, so far throughout the stories, so far throughout One Piece, I think Oda's been really, really consistent in a really, really cool way. With anytime Luffy's reputation takes a jump or whatever, usually that's reflected well in the future places that we go to, right? So, for example, he got his bump in East Blue. Then we didn't necessarily get that much respect in Logtown. Obviously, Smoker was aware of who he was, etc. But it was really once we hit Whiskey Peak, they were freaking out. They were excited. They're like, holy shit, this guy's 30 million berry bounty. This is huge. This is like the biggest fish that comes around these parts. They were freaking out about the crew. And then ultimately they were like, it must be Zoro. This guy's so terrifying. He must be a 30 million berry bounty. But like, they were freaked out at the thought of like the big fish that had landed on their, in their presence. Same thing with Jaya, right? Once they found out who Luffy really was, everybody freaking out, 100 million berry bounty. Same thing after, Luffy's 300 mil berry bounty. Like, people on Sabaody were shit scared of Luffy. Like, Luffy's rep at Sabaody, that's still one of the coolest things. Fun fact, yesterday I was actually watching this group called RTTV's reactions to a lot of, for the first time I found this channel, I was just looking through random reactions or whatever. I was watching their reactions through Sabaody, and it is really, really cool to, like, just see the respect that's finally put on Luffy's name over the course of that arc. Because that's the first arc where, like, everybody just knows before Luffy showed up who Luffy is, and they're intimidated, they're scared, they're excited by him, etc. They want to see what he's about, they want to observe him, stuff like that. I think Oda's just generally done a really cool job of consistently doing that, right? Same with Return to Sabaody, like, everybody, the whole island's in a frenzy because they hear that Straw Hat Luffy's recruiting characters and that Straw Hat Luffy's back and then he's going to the New World. Everybody's really excited about that. I think we just haven't hit a location yet where that would happen again with the crew. But I've always felt that Oda, anytime Luffy gets a bump in reputation, the next island, there's something new in terms of how people, the level of respect that people are putting on his name, how people are reacting, the type of effect it's having on the populace. It keeps going up and up and up. Like, from before, it's like, is this guy really him? Like, is he the 30 million berry bounty? To like Jaya, where it's like, holy shit, this guy really is 100 million berry bounty. To like Sabaody, where like now they even know who he is before he shows up. They don't need a bounty poster or anything like that. They've heard the name Straw Hat Luffy. To return to Sabaody, Luffy's at this point a legend, right? Like, he's a literal legend. Everybody's freaking out that they're hearing that the story of Straw Hat Luffy's picking back up, that him and his crew are actually back, the group that mysteriously disappeared and everything like that. They're like, the whole island's just excited to hopefully get a chance to be a part of Luffy's crew, and everybody's coming together to just be like hopefully recruited to join this legendary pirates crew. I just like the way that that's ramped up over and over and over again throughout the story. So I'm hoping that we get one of those moments still, really, with Luffy now as a Yonko, which is pretty much the highest degree of respect he's ever going to get as a pirate, till the story pretty much ends and he's Pirate King, which is the story's over at this point. So I know that I guess it's not going to be Egghead Island, but I hope that there's a point coming where, that's just one of my favorite parts of One Piece. Like, when we're getting these jumps, it's reflected in the new levels of reaction that we're getting out of the next populace that we're visiting, right? And so far, it's just been I don't know. The Yonko title just seems may as well be non-existent for Luffy. So far. I get that we're still at Egghead Island. Characters like Admirals, CP0, etc., they may not care. It would be nice if they cared a little bit. but they don't, because they are what they are. We probably just have to get to like a regular island or something like that. I wonder how Elbaf will react. It'll be interesting. Abflor says, what was the worst time to be a One Piece fan? The worst time to be a One Piece fan? It's hard to say. I think looking back, I could argue the 1 month break Oda took after Marineford ended. That was excruciating. But there's different ways you can look at it, right? Because like Fisherman Island was not a fun reading experience week to week. Again, I appreciate that arc a lot more now. I think it's great for what it is. I think it's really, really good for what it is. And I think it's got like one of the top, the pair of backstories that the arc is centered around are two of the absolute best in the entire story by far. But reading Fisherman Island was really painful. So it depends on what you mean in terms of what was the worst time to be a One Piece fan. Fisherman Island was not fun. It was also not fun to have like, we're so excited to see all the Straw Hats come back with these crazy power. Like we've waited so long. We want to see them in fights again. We want to see them show what they can do, etc. And the villains are so weak. It just doesn't even like, it's essentially an entire arc. It feels like dedicated to letting them flex. At least that's what it feels like when you're first reading it, which isn't fun. You don't want to read 50 chapters just to see the Straw Hats essentially get to finally just stomp some losers, right? That's what it feels like reading initially. In retrospect, it's really, really important for the story. It's a blip in the grand scheme of things. It's a good exposition arc that happens to have a nice little flex scene for the pirate, like flex fight for the Straw Hats at the end of it, right? Fisherman Island was not fun in that sense, but I would argue that Thriller Bark was a less fun time to be a One Piece fan, at least in my experience, and I was not week to week prior to Thriller Bark, so I can't speak before that. But at least once you've hit Fishman Island, the worst you can say about it as a One Piece fan week to week is that you're impatient and you're sick of the arc. You're impatient, you're sick of the arc, you're kind of like, let's get to the good stuff, let's get to the New World, let's get to the Yonko, let's get to the Admirals, blah, blah, blah. In Thriller Bark, you're still at the stage in One Piece's story where, yeah, you're just coming off an amazing story in Enies Lobby and everything like that, right? But the whole story of One Piece has yet to really open up. You don't get, like, the whole Sabaody through Marineford, that's the storyline that really blew up the story of One Piece to what it is and what we consider it to be today, right? This giant world war conflict, right? This huge landscape of different factions all competing for supremacy over the seas, based on this long running history of mysteries and passed down wills and secrets and things like that, like in this ancient war, all of that, right? That you don't fully understand the scope of that. You don't fully truly understand the scope of that till Marineford, right? And you don't really know all of the strong characters that are out there till Marineford. So Thriller Bark, you're still in the phase where One Piece is mostly an arc to arc enjoyable experience, right? And we just came off an amazing arc. An arc Enies Lobby, that did blow up the scale of the world in our minds to a degree, but nowhere close to what Marineford did, right? We kind of just began to understand, okay, there's bigger stuff out there. But at Thriller Bark, we're still at the old school style of One Piece storytelling where it's very, very self-contained in terms of like, you're stuck on this island, and if you don't enjoy what's going on this island, then tough luck, because that's basically, this is it. You're here. You're here for the rest of the year. That's it. And Thriller Bark was not great. I dropped the series. Again, keep in mind, this is young Morj, right? This is young Morj. I'm younger. I don't think I was even in high school at the time that Thriller Bark was week to week. I think I was maybe rounding out middle school or something like that. So I dropped, I think that's about right. I dropped One Piece for a while Thriller Bark was going on. And I came back to it a while later. I got to binge some chapters. That was fun. But it really was, like, until the Kuma section, Thriller Bark's not that fun of a weekly reading experience. It's also just like even random stuff like the way that Luffy beats Oars. He eats a bunch of shadows and goes Nightmare Luffy, and it's cool and hype at the moment, but at the same time, it's also just like, this is just the definition of a temporary power-up. Like, this is the most temporary of temporary power-ups, right? It's just like, we had this giant monster creature built up for so long. How are they going to beat it? oh, Luffy just does this one-off thing that's never going to happen again to take it down. It's just like, why? Why even? What's the point? I guess Nightmare Luffy was fun for what it was, but at the same time, at least for me, it wasn't like a satisfying way for Luffy to fight Oars, because I'm just like, this is so temporary. Like, this may as well have never happened, essentially, because now the shadows are all gone. It was a cool for a one-chapter fight, basically, but it's not ever going to be relevant in the story again. Luffy didn't get any stronger or anything like that. It's just, he ate a mushroom, like a Mario mushroom or whatever, got supersized for a second, beat up Oars, then went back to normal or whatever. The crew got a nice finisher on Oars altogether afterwards, but I'm just saying, like, overall, I didn't enjoy a lot of what happened over the course of Thriller Bark. It was hard for me to be very invested in a lot of what was happening in Thriller Bark week to week, so I did actually drop the series for a while there. Anyway, close second place in terms of hardest time to be a One Piece fan is during the sections of Dressrosa where they were climbing up the plateau. Good God, those were rough. But it was made up for by, I think, a lot of the hype moments at the end of Dressrosa. Mr. MMF2 says, did Oda seriously forget that Law's fruit can heal any sickness? Also, wasn't the first instance that we see Haki countering Devil Fruit was Dofi against Kuzan? I saw people talking about Haki countering Devil Fruit, like, there's a difference, right, in my opinion, in that, like, I don't think when Doflamingo broke out of Aokiji's ice, I don't think anybody was like it was kind of just like, Doflamingo's just a tough character. Like, you can't physically freeze him that like, he's physically very strong. He can break out of the ice. I think that's what most people believed at the time. Even if you thought that he has Haki coating and stuff, right? That's not the same as, like, magically preventing him from being frozen. Because from what we could tell, he was indeed frozen, right? He was breathing heavily, etc. He was panting. He was indeed frozen. He was just the combination of his Haki and physical strength. He was able to break out of the ice, right? That feels very different from this, which is just like, Law straight up, like, said no to the disease. The disease is just expelled from his body. I guess the difference in how I'd say it is, like, characters in fiction, period, break out of ice all the fucking time, right? You're never like, oh, well, they use some magic to cancel out the ice, right? It's usually just like ice in fiction in general is treated as something that with enough force, you're capable of breaking out of it. I think no matter how you read the Doflamingo scene, that's pretty much what's conveyed there, right? Doflamingo is physically capable of breaking out of the ice. If you want to say it's, his physical strength plus, the strength of his Haki coating his body or whatever, because we now know that Haki and physical strength, like, that's been clearly intertwined for, like, hundreds of chapters, right? Like, whatever. It just seemed to me like Doflamingo broke out of his ice by force, right? That's what it seems like, broke out of his ice by force. This seems very different to what Law is explaining here, which is that Haki can just magically essentially cancel out whatever the effect of a Devil Fruit ability is. Because you're not breaking free of a disease through force, which means that the Haki is just canceling it out. To me, Doflamingo, like, the only the Doflamingo breaking out of the ice thing, again, that just seems like someone breaking out of ice to me. That's pretty much it. Just seems like someone breaking out of ice. Yeah, I don't really know what more to say about that. Ronald... Big Don says, quick reminder, common Yamato L. Big News Morgan says, Law will get a power-up and defeat Blackbeard, and Kid will get a power-up and defeat Shanks, and both will replace them as new Yonkos. I don't know if that's going to happen. Oyasumi says, think Usopp will get any buffs to match Van Augur? Will Usopp get any buffs to match Van Augur? Yeah, I definitely think Usopp needs some, but it depends on if it's, like, buffs that happen in the spur of the moment, like when he unlocked Observation Haki, or if it's stuff that he'll improve on the side. I don't know about those. Carl, I think probably a bit of both. He definitely is going to need something during the fight, because I think Usopp's one of Oda's favorite characters to go to like, have a sort of moment of improved resolve or something like that within the moment of a fight, right? So you can see that in Usopp versus Chu, Usopp versus Mr. Four-Pair, Usopp versus Perona, even Usopp versus Sugar being a great example recently where, like, it actually triggered a Haki bloom. So I think Usopp's probably a great character to have. You know what's interesting? I think Usopp, because of the nature of Usopp's personality, I think Usopp is the type of character that would be really, really capable of having frequent Haki blooms. It's just that he runs from battles so often that he doesn't give himself the opportunity to do so. Think about that. I know Jaggerwell says, Punk Hazard may be because Punk Hazard, maybe because the post time skip hype suffered a slow death. Thanks for being a member for 2 months, Anuj. Yeah, the post time skip hype. How do I explain this? I will never like the way Oda, like, coming out of Marineford, One Piece had, I think, to date, an unprecedented amount of hype, because what everybody wanted to see was the Straw Hats come out fully trained or whatever, and come out into the New World swinging. The story, like, everything was really, really, like, there was so much ridiculous, dramatic momentum coming out of the time skip for things to just explode. But that is not how Oda wanted to do it. I think what we gradually found out was that Oda wanted a really slow sort of build back to bigger shit happening, which I think I always was behind that for the longest time, because I liked the way that Oda, I was like, okay, you hit that, now let's get slowly back to the big shit, and then this time the Straw Hats will succeed, whereas Marineford, whatever. Like, okay, you really want to milk the Straw, like, milk the time it takes for the Straw Hats to finally have their big first all-out battle coming out of the New World, right? I didn't know it would be fucking, another 500 chapters or 400 chapters, to the climax of the Wano arc before the Straw Hats actually, have a significant battle, right, as a crew. I don't know if he was going to milk it that long, 400 chapters, but I appreciated him taking his time for that. Now, because of the way I personally felt about the Wano arc, and how I personally felt that the setup of the conflict, the weight behind the conflict, the tone, the structure, so many aspects of it, right? Which, again, video incoming. The way I felt about the Wano arc, I personally felt that 400 chapters of build up to essentially that being the first big fight that the Straw Hats got, I didn't feel like that was great. So it's kind of like, I get, like, when I look at the end of Marineford and, like, the excitement of that, and I'm just like, knowing that coming out of that, it's like there's very little bits of drips of kind of action and a kind of slow build up. Like, first they fuck up these fishmen, then this scientist dude on an island, he's very weak. Then they get to Doflamingo, and that's pretty cool, but really that's just the Luffy show. Oh, and also all the Straw Hats are pretty much going to be side characters for the next 200 chapters. You get like half of them here, half of them there, but don't expect them to get fights really, if anything significant. And then, all of it's leading up to this big climax, right? That's when we meet the Yonko, and that's when we fight the Yonko, and then we're fighting Kaido, Big Mom. That's the big thing. Okay, so this big build-up is for that. Okay, that'll be the really, really, really great stuff, and then that'll make this whole 400 chapter wait worth it. For me, because that part didn't hit that well, so, like, actually getting the big battle for the Straw Hats, that wasn't really... For me personally, there are several arcs pre-time skip that I think had better climactic battles than the Onigashima battle, essentially. So for me, the 400 chapters of build up to there were not worth it. So for me, overall, looking in retrospective, kind of like the hype coming out of Marineford, then the fast drop in terms of that hype, then the slow build up back to that hype, but then not really, for me personally, delivering in a manner even close to what was going on pre-time skip. That kind of makes me look at this whole section of the story somewhat differently. However, that's not to say that I'm not very excited for the final section of the story, because the final section of the story, we're getting kind of like such a ridiculously fast build-up, and like the kind of just the things that seem to be getting checked off in the runway to whatever the final battle is seem so insane that I think that, you know what, at the end of the day, if I don't fuck as hard with the middle section, I guess is the 50 to 80% section of One Piece, that segment of the story, but I love everything before, and I love everything that's the finale of it. It is what it is. That's, considering how long the series is, it's still pretty insane of a feat. Carlos Cifuentes says, Luffy did it to Monet when she tried freezing him. No, I think that this is just like people going back and like... Because like... None of us thought that was like hockey tricks back then or whatever. It's literally just like, no, Luffy even didn't do it to Monet. Monet was freezing him. He had to break a hole in the floor and drop through that to get away, right? So it wasn't that. Like, I don't think people should retroactively go back and be like, anytime someone fights back against a Devil Fruit ability, it's them using Haki to cancel it out. Like, because there's so many times that it's clearly not even like, I don't know. We'll see as more examples come up. LD Sparrow says, maybe it's a law being a doctor thing. He might have imbued his own immune cells with Haki to defeat the disease. I doubt Luffy could pull it off. Yeah, all I know is, like, okay, if we want to play that game, right, then why didn't Luffy do that anytime Caesar used his poison gas on him? Right? Like, it's just strange to me because Luffy's Haki is way above Caesar's, right? And Luffy's Haki, probably day one of the New World, was probably better than Law's is right now. Like, I'll be blunt with that. Like, Luffy was a really good Conqueror's Haki user, to be honest, even coming out of the new, like coming out of the post-time skip. Luffy could knock out, what was it? 50,000 fishmen, right? Like, Luffy was a really good Conqueror's Haki user. He wasn't an advanced Conqueror's Haki user yet, but he was a fucking good Conqueror's Haki user. Like, Luffy's Haki has always been really, really strong. He just had to learn the better tricks. Advanced armament, advanced observation stuff. Tricks that Law doesn't have, obviously. So, I'm just like, it just seems so arbitrary to me because it's just like, that should mean, so like, Caesar's trick shouldn't work, right? Caesar's trick that he just did against Katakuri shouldn't work, right? It's just so random to me that it's just like, well, Law can cancel out the Doc Q thing because it's just inconsistent with everything that we've seen so far. I don't know. Tala Jahan says, about to send a somewhat long chat. Read it. Dude, I have to... You can't just say... That means I have to go scroll through the whole chat or whatever. All right, some people repost Tala Jahan's chat, I guess. Or you keep reposting it. I'll catch it when I catch it. I can't just scroll back through the whole thing. I'll try and catch it if you repost it. Ivan back from the card shop says, important note about Law's Haki is that he was heavily breathing from just that, so it probably took a good portion of energy at least. Yeah, I don't know. It's also probably he's just like under fire out of the blue, so it's probably kind of a panic-inducing moment. Grizzly Adam says, what if the Devil Fruit user's will plays a factor in how hard it is canceled? Doc Q certainly doesn't have a high tier will, but Hancock is a conqueror. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Maddie says Luffy's dreams might be to have the ability to swim, as simple as it is, but it's impossible to access it due to the Devil Fruit. Just think about it. Yeah, I don't think that that's right. Dreams, next island is actually Sniper Island. Tom says too much credit to Blackbeard and not Law. He at least stabbed Big Mom. Blackbeard has no Conqueror's Haki confirmation yet. He's on the Devil Fruit stealing crew and probably relies on Devil Fruits more than you think. Still makes him quite strong, though. Yeah, I don't think Blackbeard's that good at Haki. I don't think Blackbeard's that good at Haki. I don't think I've ever thought that Blackbeard's that good at Haki. But he did surprise me pleasantly with the Mihawk Seraphim interaction, because that's a pretty decent Haki feed. I mean, I put out a whole video saying I don't think Blackbeard's a Conqueror's Haki user. So next says, concerning Haki versus Devil Fruit attacks, like Gamma Knight or Fire Fist can't be cancelled. It's just absolute effects like Sugar's Toy Transformation or Shambles. Is that true, or is that like... I like that take on it in that it's a possibility, but at the moment that is essentially a guess at how we could possibly reconcile some of the inconsistencies we've seen. Sheriff Lafitte says, do you think the New World arcs have lacked a central theme? Friendship for Alabasta, Dreams for Skypiea, Coming of Age, and The Right for Freedom for Water 7. These themes help tie big arcs together. No, all of the New World arcs have had... I think every New World arc so far has had solid themes. I mean, Fisherman Island was thematically a really strong arc. Dressrosa, I mean, I don't want to go through everything here, but Dressrosa had, like, very... Dressrosa, I mean, there's different things you could say, like, in terms of what was the single most important theme. So if you're arguing, like, is there a really strong central theme that's the most important for these arcs? I think it gets a little tricky. Like, Dressrosa, I think the most important theme at the end of the day in Dressrosa was Heart. Whole Cake Island, it's a bit of a mix, I guess. I gotta watch my own videos. Whole Cake Island, a bit of a mix, but I do think the importance of staying true to yourself, importance of, like... Yeah, importance of being yourself was probably the most important theme in Whole Cake Island. But there's... Like, every One Piece arc will have, like, one major theme and then surrounding themes. So I will say that maybe some of the pre-time skip arcs had more clearly defined dreams. Not dreams, sorry, themes. But I think Oda's been doing a good job of that throughout post-time skip. Wano is the only one that I think is severe. Like, people don't talk about this at all. But I think thematically, Wano is the worst arc in One Piece by a long shot, basically, in terms of how it constructed its themes. Not that it doesn't have themes, but in terms of like how it's set up its thematic messaging and how consistent it is with its thematic messaging and how much it remembers its own thematic messaging. I think Wano is by far the worst arc in One Piece. Like, this is an area where I'm not going to be like, oh, in my personal opinion. Obviously, it is in my personal opinion, but like, when you're talking about certain things like, did the author do X or Y with how they structured a theme? Like, did they... This is, again, something you'll have to wait for the longer video in. But certain things like, did they establish this, and then this, and was it consistent with this? Those are more objective things, right? And then it's subjective, whether or not you enjoyed it or cared about it or whatever, or whether you even think themes matter in a story. You can not care about themes whatsoever and be like, I think the arc's a 10 out of 10. I don't care if they did the cleanest thematic structuring or the cleanest thematic messaging or something. That's fine. That's subjective. But I can objectively... I keep talking about this video. But, like, you can kind of break down how Oda set up Wano's themes, basically, and be like, this is really, really not well structured, at least compared to how he has done in most other great One Piece arcs, pretty much. So that's a big part of Wano, but I know a lot of people don't really care. Like, usually when people talk about how they rate One Piece arcs, I almost never see themes included in the first place. Like, people are like, fights, 10 out of 10. Lore / world building, 10 out of 10. Characters, maybe they'll be like, for Wano, character arcs weren't so good, so like 7 out of 10 or something like that. But like, you almost never see themes included, so I'm just like, it's not even worth discussing anytime I talk about criticism of Wano, because it's like just not something that most people even have on their radar when they're evaluating the arc. Kidsmini94 says, oh wait, I missed one. Joyboy56 says, Sanji's reaction to Pudding being kidnapped should be interesting. Yeah, it's actually a really, really interesting setup for like who Sanji could potentially fight at the end of the day. Because I wonder if like the character that captures Pudding is the one that Sanji's ultimately going to fight. Randy Troy dropped, I don't know if Randy's in chat or anything like that. Sometimes he drops by, but he dropped a really, really, I think that this is correct too. He mentioned on Twitter that he thinks that Lafitte could use hypnosis to force Pudding to open her third eye. I think that's a really, really good theory. I think that's the quickest route to getting Pudding to open her third eye. Just makes a lot of sense. They have the tools for it. And it could be interesting to see if Lafitte's the villain that Sanji fights. I never thought it'd be Lafitte. I was like, either it's Burgess or the mysterious 10th member. Lafitte was not on my radar for that. Kidsmini94 says, Usopp will get Future Sight to combat teleporting. That would be really, really cool to see. That'd be really, really cool to see. Yeah, Usopp getting a buff in observation would be amazing. Data Deficient says, hey Morj, do you think the egg on Roger's ship might be connected to Egghead Island? Yeah, I've definitely thought that. I mean, I'm not the only one. A lot of people were talking about that after we got to Egghead Island. I definitely think that that's a strong possibility. Spade says, Luffy used watermint hockey against Crocodile. Yeah. What is this? Tlungu96 says, I think hockey canceling out Devil Fruit is a Parmesia thing. There's nothing to cancel out for Zones or Logia besides countering the element. Maybe. I don't know. Hopefully we get a bit more clarification. Candy Cheese Truckman says, loving the honest and brutal takes, my man. I don't think I'm saying anything here that is not like, I don't think I've even said anything that controversial. Hold on, let me skim chat. Sometimes I say some stuff and I'm like, wait, are people mad? I don't think people are mad. I think we're good, right? Alright, it seems we're fine. Kevin says, Morj, can you say something controversial? Nah, I'm good. Leave me be. I'm good. Guys, let's get the stream to 650 likes. Also, I'm now going to link you guys to Morj Unleashed, because if you think that any of these takes have been even somewhat spicy, and if you've missed the earlier part of the stream, where I think I also gave some spicy takes, I think that you guys should check out Morj Unleashed, which is the best channel for Morj's spiciest takes. There's a reason that it's called Morj Unleashed. I'm going to pin it right now. Also, the editing on it is top tier. If I do give my unbiased opinion. So, good stuff there. Also, let me give you guys just because I was a little bit not the happiest with, just because I'm saying certain things about Wano, I hope I'm being very clear in that, where we're at right now in One Piece. Let me draw you guys a chart. LD Sparrow 10 says, I said Law could pull it off because of his medical expertise, not hockey. Obviously, Luffy is too dumb to counter Caesar's gas. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. William Pearson forgot to post anything. Before I move on, do we see Talha Jahan's comment? Have we seen Talha Jahan's comment anywhere? Talha Jahan says, Sanji will sabotage Uranus. Ties into Skypiea connections, Arc Maxim. Likely uses invisibility and fight abilities built up for arcs. Goes back to Sanji's claim to Kuma about causing the most trouble. That would be interesting. I would love for Sanji to get one more really cool stealth moment. Because the closest that we got here, which wasn't bad, it was saving Momonosuke. It was going stealth and saving Momonosuke. I like that. It definitely wasn't... I don't think it's an iconic moment, right? I think that Lord Oblivion says abilities that affect the enemy can't be canceled. Abilities that target opponent directly can be. Affect the ENV, Caesar, Aokiji, etc. Opponent, Docu, Law, etc. Oh, affect the environment. Okay. Abilities that affect the environment can't be canceled. Abilities that target the opponent directly can be. That's a good way of... I like that. That explanation makes sense. I like that. See that potential. One sec. Sorry, just reading one thing. See some people debating themes in the chat. All right. Okay. So this was me. All right. This was Morj. Let me screen share. Did my audio cut out? Nope. All good. All right. So this was me, right? Imagine this chart. Okay. This was me during Wano start. Okay. Wano middle. Wano end. Something we're going to call the sad days, which we'll get to in a second. And then now, all right? This was I didn't chart this out that cleanly, but you guys get the picture, okay? So this is kind of how it went. This is my mentality, okay? When Wano started, at the time that Wano started, my where I was at in terms of my love for One Piece was basically I don't want to do a full chart out of it, but imagine it was up here. Just it was infinite essentially, all right? It was really, really, really fucking high, okay? This was a point in time. I loved Whole Cake Island. I really liked Whole Cake Island. I was one of the people that really defended it. A lot of people really disliked Whole Cake Island. I loved Whole Cake Island. Coming off of that, we got the Reverie. We're heading into Wano. I'm confident that Wano is going to... I'm so certain that Wano is going to be the best storyline I've ever read. By far. I'm 100% certain. Not 100% certain, but I'm it's going to be as good as Enies Lobby for me, as good as Marineford. Even if it's not quite there, I'm going to be very happy, right? So this is where I was, and a lot of it plays into where I was in YouTube as well, because, I had not just started, but I was kind of on my way basically to being somewhat established as a One Piece YouTuber. People had heard my name, which was cool. I was being discussed, which was cool. I was getting viewers. I was in a decent place in subscribers. And at this time, One Piece was still a side thing for me. It was just purely a hobby, to be honest. If you guys remember, people who have been following the channel for a while, this was back when I would just like not do a video for like 4 or 5 months or something, then come back and be like, okay, I feel like doing a video now, and I'd do a video, right? So very, very inconsistent in terms of video uploads. This was back at this point in time, all right? So this was my love for One Piece. It was really, really high. As Wano continued, I don't know if you guys remember, not a lot of people loved Wano's middle, like Act 2 and stuff like that. I was somewhere here because I wasn't loving it, but I was like, you know what? If this isn't the final battle, like if the setup for this is not like, what if something really dramatic happens? Like the raid fails, right? I was like, I'm sure that there will be something really dramatic that happens this arc that like gives it some juice or some boost or something for me personally. So for me in Wano Middle, I'm still very confident. Then Wano's End comes around, and then I'm low on One Piece because, not because the raid didn't fail, but just because like we got to the end of Wano essentially, and it wasn't what I had really truly hoped for. And then this was like a small section, which was the sad days, where I'm excited for One Piece still because, you know, Green Bull's into like Shanks and stuff like that. The chapters Oda used as the break was around still got me excited, but I was still just like, man, like, I just wonder, like, he also put out a quote about like trying to wrap One Piece up really soon and like trying to cut a lot of the plot points and stuff. And I was like, man, is this still really going to be my favorite series if I just don't know? I just didn't know. I just didn't know. And this, regardless of your opinions on Wano, even if you really liked it and thought it's the best arc in One Piece, I don't care. I'm saying like this is where I'm at, right? At least what I was hoping to see out of Wano, I didn't quite see. And I also saw a lot of things that I considered red flags in terms of like, is Oda going to be able to fit everything? Is the story going to feel like really packed or rushed heading into the final section of the story? Are we going to get stuff cut? Now, I am back comfortably here. I'm not quite here, right? Do we have a dotted line? Is there something that's a dotted line? All right. Imagine this is a dotted line, all right? A dotted line going across. This is just a dotted line, all right? Imagine this is I'm not quite back to where I once was, but this is basically where I'm at. This is me right now. I'm in terms of excitement. I'm not quite where I was at the start of Wano, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And I'm more excited than I was during the middle section of Wano. Okay? Because, and I was explaining a lot of this towards the beginning of the stream, it's just so many things that I'm seeing right now, which is like, it feels more streamlined. Every chapter that we've gotten so far feels like it's a very well planned and very significant move for the plot. It's very dramatic storytelling, right? Surprising, unpredictable, but at the same time, it feels very intentional, as though it's all heading in a certain direction. Pieces are coming together. There's a lot of confidence, I feel like, behind, a lot of certainty. My confidence in basically the level of certainty I'm seeing from like the major plot points that we're hitting right now and the way things are moving. And then on top of that, the island that we're at right now, Egghead Island, it's not the usual, I was talking about this at the beginning of the stream, but it's not the usual barrage of random bits of information and characters that are sort of going to like slowly gain importance as the arc moves on. It feels like Oda's working with the main dishes right away, the main pieces that we're going to need. And I don't know if we're going to need too many more pieces over the course of Egghead Island. It feels very, very streamlined. And it's like we're getting to the stuff that we wanted to see for a long time. And he's not really beating around the bush with it anymore. And he's not really including much more fluff, right? We're still getting, and that's not to say he's rushing it, right? What I'm liking is that we're still getting to get the feel of the new island, right? We're having fun. We're bonding with Bonnie. We're getting to explore the lab. It's fun, cool time. We're getting our breather stuff. It's not like Oda's forcing everything too quickly. But at the same time, we're not meeting a bunch of bullshit characters. It feels like the plot points that are at play at Egghead Island are the important ones, right? Vegapunk, Bonnie, Seraphim Kuma. What the hell happened to Lucia? That stuff's approaching very quickly. We've got Sword on the side. Law and Blackbeard in the background. Everything that's moving together right now feels very, very like almost guaranteed quality. Like guaranteed story quality. Like this is what we really, really, really want out of the rest of the story. And I don't think there's that much danger of getting bogged down in irrelevant plot threads or characters that don't really go anywhere. And I feel like, especially because we're in the last segment of the story, I feel very confident that however Oda wants to thematically round out things, that's going to be 10 out of 10, I'm sure. So in the themes department, sure. Character-wise, I feel like Oda knows that he wants to be working with the Bonnie Kuma storyline right here. Vegapunk seems very important as well, but it seems like we're going to be very focused on those character storylines. There's not other, like, it seems like it's going to be quality over quantity. The Bonnie Kuma storyline seems like something that's been set up for a long, long time. He already seems to be implying that it's very emotional, so we're going to be getting that stuff hopefully as well. Yeah, it just seems like we're not going to be bogged down in a lot of stuff that is, I don't know, not quite as, we're not going to be getting bogged down in stuff that maybe doesn't need to be in the story. I think that whatever Oda did to streamline stuff is probably going to be really, really good. Also, the last thing I'll say is just that it feels like one of the big things for me in Wano, probably the biggest thing, you can scrap everything else, but for me the biggest thing was just that I never really felt like Oda made big moves that created significant dramatic tension or significantly changed the tone, right? I always felt like everything was kind of treated as fairly trivial. Maybe a shakeup here every chapter or so or everything like that, but there was never a point where the tone truly, truly shifted, except for arguably half a chapter when everybody thought that Luffy was dead in chapter 1043. But aside from that, I think over the course of Wano, it was genuinely, there was not a lot of shakeup stuff. Whereas I think already, there's been some crazy shit happening over the course of the last, 6 or 7 chapters that imply that the ending segment of One Piece is going to be filled with some really, really dramatic, hard-hitting plot twists that I think could really, really set up for a more, I don't know, serious tone coming out of certain events. You know what I mean? That's all I'll say. Anyway, hope that chart helped you guys understand where the Morj mentality is at right now. That's pretty much it. Where are we at? William Pearson? No, we covered that. Hello? Okay. Anime Dimension says, do you think Devil Fruit's secret will be revealed by Vegapunk and also about Mads and lineage factors in Egghead Island? Do I think Devil Fruit's secret will be revealed by Vegapunk and also about Mads and lineage factor in Egghead Island? I kind of don't ever want to find out the secret behind Devil Fruits, but I wouldn't be surprised if we end up going there in the story. I like Devil Fruits as just being Devil Fruits. I think that they're a cool characteristic of the story. I don't really want to learn more about them. I don't want to learn that there's some fruits from outer space or there's some devil god that created the fruits or something, or there's some... I just like Devil Fruits for what they are. I do think we'll learn more about Mads and the lineage factor. Tom says, my new job scheduled me on Mondays. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, we get to, I don't know, listen to this, right? Flame Empress says, Wano Loki felt like an early East Blue arc. And thank you for being a 2-month Yonko member. Shouts to you. Loki felt like an early East Blue arc. I'm not going to go that far, but it's not going to say something like that. I'd say in terms of how casually and okay, if I'm being fully real, yes, you can look side by side at what the Straw Hats' emotional state was heading into the Onigashima battle versus heading over to Arlong Park. There's literally no it's straight there on the page. The Arlong Park was treated significantly with volume, the degree of seriousness with which them rolling up to Arlong Park was treated compared to them rolling up to Onigashima was treated. It's night and day, because again, the Straw Hats were mostly chilling for most of the first half of Wano. They didn't really go through anything emotional for the first half of Wano. So when they're rolling up to Onigashima, they are literally, very literally planning their party and laughing and hugging and are just happy and goofing about shit. That's just not what I personally like One Piece for. I personally prefer the energy Oda brings out with shit like them rolling up to Arlong Park. Very emotional storyline for the Straw Hats, right? Alabasta, them rolling up to Alabasta, them rolling up to Enies Lobby, things like that. That's what I really like out of One Piece. That's it. That's all I got to say. Right? But I do think that we will get that sort of energy in the final saga because it'll probably just be too serious for it to not be like that, right? Although I did think that's the same that in Wano, and that's just whatever. Whatever. Ali Labuana says, when are we getting the Wano analysis video? Okay, so I keep talking about the video and I keep not having it done. So it got slightly sidetracked by a somewhat bigger project for me, which will be launching next week. So the goal will basically always be the soonest break week that's doable. So it wouldn't be next break week, but maybe the following break week. I'll give you guys updates as it goes, but I have not furthered my I was at about like 50%, and I haven't furthered progress since then because I had to work on the other project. You'll see that. Usopp Dono says, bruh, Morj is willing to be ignorant on Devil Fruit origins is beyond me. It's just not something that I ever really liked. It's one of those things that I actually, how do I explain this? There's certain things that I enjoy at just being part of the charm of a story's world. There's certain things that I just enjoy as part of the charm of a story's world. So for example, in One Piece, I don't ever really want to know why, let's say, what's a good example of an island? Why does Little Garden have dinosaurs? I don't really want to know why there's an island that just looks like a giant cake, right? Why does Whole Cake Island exist? Why does an island that's just a giant cake exist, right? I don't want to know that. I don't want to know why, like, there's certain islands where, you know, the ground is invisible and you're running across an invisible island like Apu was doing, right? There's certain things that I just like as the part of the charm of One Piece world, right? Like Long Ring, Long Land. Why the fuck is everything really long? Well, there is an explanation given for that, which is just that, if I remember, it's like they take life so easy that everything stretches out. But that's like a gag explanation, if that makes sense, right? Yeah, there's just certain things that I just consider a part of the charm of the One Piece world that I like that it's not explained. I don't need all of it broken down into a science of like, yeah, and then this magical element led to this effect, led to that, etc. Basically, I personally don't need that. Devil fruits fall into that category for me, which is like I just appreciate it as a part of the world. It's a unique power system that One Piece has, and I don't really need the greater explanation for why the devil fruits exist. For me, the things that I want explanations for in One Piece are things where there's a mystery hinted at behind it, essentially. Anything that has like, I don't think we've ever truly been made to question the origins of devil fruits, right? Just because devil fruits are like, people have tried to create artificial devil fruits, I don't think that leads to us questioning the origins of devil fruits, right? As opposed to, say, you know, the moon or Lunarians or anything like that, like where there's quotes or like there's little things that it's like, wait, you're supposed to think a little bit more, like there's something to this. This is something that needs to be answered, right? That's just me. Like, it's cool. Like, some people were talking about, like, what if there's like a explanation for the knock-up stream that has to do with, you know, Im's powers or something like that. I think somebody talked about that a few streams back about like, what if it's Im manipulating the waves because Im has the ocean devil fruit and that's why knock-up streams happen. Great, if that's the case, then that's the case, that's cool. At the same time, even if we never find that out, I don't need an explanation for why knock-up streams happen. I think it's cool that the One Piece world is just a fantastic world with some magical elements, such as some streams just shoot up out into the air for no reason. Tom says, what devil fruits would the 4 Hunter x Hunter main characters plus Hisoka have? I thought of this when I started thinking about Leorio having the Ope Ope no Mi, hype for Hunter x Hunter. Tom, thank you for being a member of the Yonko for 2 months. Would the 4 main characters plus Hisoka have? I think Gon would have something very simple. Gon might honestly have the buff fruit that Burgess has. Or, I mean, he's kind of beast-like. He might have a Zoan. I think that's been described as part of his nature. Killua... Leorio doesn't deserve the Opiepa no Mi, although I really like Leorio. Honestly, Killua kind of feels like Opiepa no Mi-esque. It's just he doesn't have the knowledge base to use it properly, but he fits a little bit like a law type mentality, a little bit. Kurapika might be closer to that. I think Kurapika could be closer to that. I'm trying not to give them OP fruits because I'm like, fuck, give Killua the Goro Goro no Mi. But Killua, something like... This is too hard. This is too hard. I don't want to do this. It's too difficult. It's hard to strike a balance between something that's not OP that fits them properly. Because even basic abilities like fire or something like that, the One Piece Devil Fruit versions of those are really fucking strong. So it's a little hard. I think Hisoka might have like Doflamingo's fruit, although they're very different characters, to be honest. Doflamingo's very, very manipulative and controlling, whereas Hisoka's much more go with the he's a very free flowing, unbound character. But just in terms of abilities, I think it'd be a cool little match. I think Hisoka would love Doflamingo's abilities. Killua is a little difficult. Let me know if you guys think of something for Killua. The jacket fruit. Oh, I'll never forget. You guys thought the jacket fruit wasn't cool. Jacket fruit's one of the coolest fruits in the series. Give Killua's Lucci's fruit. I was trying to avoid giving... I think Lucci's fruit is a great idea. I was trying to avoid giving both Gon and Killua Zoan fruits. Katakuri's fruit for Hisoka. Noah Kang says, I've been enjoying the arc with your sponsorships. Went from streamline your cooking to you actually don't have to cook at all. Okay, so I think I'm allowed to say this, which is when Factor wanted to work with me, because Factor, you don't have to cook at all. HelloFresh is easy cooking, so you're still getting to cook and choose how you're preparing the meal or whatever. It's just very quick. Like, HelloFresh is really, really easy. Factor is just pre-prepared straight up. So at first I was like, wait, is this okay? Like, you guys know I work with HelloFresh. And then I found out, like, oh no, we're the same company. I'm like, what? It's like, it's the same company, or like the same, it's all interconnected basically. So Factor is essentially, it's what you want. If you don't want to cook whatsoever, you get Factor. If you want to cook, but you just don't want to you don't want it to be a time-consuming part of your day, and you want all of the ingredients like pretty much ready to go, very easy to follow recipes. Everything's like literally given to you, like all of the simple tools that you would need basically for it. Not like physical tools like pots and pans, but you know what I'm saying. Like stuff will come shredded, pre-shredded, blah 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 blah. Like if you want to just get it done 15 minutes or less, that's HelloFresh. If you don't want to do anything at all, that's Factor. So it actually made sense once they explained it to me. But first I was like, are you guys? You know that I also do HelloFresh, right? Bassem El Medawi says, I have a theory. Vivre cards are a watered-down version of Devil Fruits. Basically, Devil Fruits help people reunite and carry a will. What do you think? If this is true, we'd find out from Vegapunk. That's an interesting point, that maybe we find out what, like, Vivre cards are. Because we know there's an island where Vivre cards are made. I don't know about that with Devil Fruits, necessarily, them being tied to Vivre cards, but, you might be onto something there, and that we might find out more about Vivre cards just through Vegapunk. All right. I think we're good to go. It's been a 2-hour stream. Power Vision saying, it's kind of like what we did, Morj. I'm the parent company, but everyone thinks we're all the same company. That's... Wait, what? Why are you... You're not the parent company? What? Why would... I came first. Power Vision's like, oh wait, it's not the same thing. Yeah, I think we're good. 2 hours kind of flew by, actually. But, yeah, good stuff. Let me answer one more good question, and I'll call it a day. No more supers, otherwise it gets complicated. Gabriel says, when did we see Garp swim? I'm pretty sure Garp doesn't have a devil fruit, right? That doesn't need to be clarified, right? Stephen Cox says, Wano. Wano is the place Vivre cards are made? Am I crazy? Was that established? Wait, Jacob Greenberg asked, favorite Jake and Amir episode. It's so difficult. I think Jake and Amir have, like, some great episodes. Honestly, like, it's almost cheating, but the Ben Schwartz episode with the... where he's like, a private eye or interrogator or something like that, and he's trying to find out who took a shit in the copier. That probably made me laugh the hardest out of any Jake and Amir episode. It's an episode that I think they couldn't make today. If we're setting aside Ben Schwartz stuff, I think it's literally too hard for me to... It's so difficult. I don't know. Jake and Amir's got so many good episodes. I like their later episodes better than their earlier ones, but their earlier ones still hold up really well, too. Their sense of humor changed. All right. I think we're all good. All right. The baby well wishes are coming in, which means it is time to end the stream. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And I will talk to you all later.